Have you ever met someone and thought, something's just off about them, but I can't explain it? Maybe it's your new date, a coworker, or the guy living next door. What if you had a real psychological system to tell if someone is emotionally healthy or dangerously unstable in just a few minutes? Welcome to Zuzu, the book reader, where we unpack powerful books with playful storytelling and deep insights. Today, we're diving into Find Out Who's Normal and Who's Not by Dr. David J. Lieberman, a book that doesn't just help you spot red flags. It gives you a complete emotional X-ray system to protect your peace, your people, and your future. Top takeaways you'll get from this book: how to read anyone's emotional stability in just a 5-minute conversation, or even from across the room. Why high self-esteem is the real backbone of healthy behavior, and what happens when it's missing. How childhood wounds, blurred boundaries, and avoidance patterns leave invisible but dangerous emotional footprints. How to spot manipulators, narcissists, and emotionally unstable people without them even saying a word. A step-by-step psychological profiling system used by the military, FBI, and professionals worldwide. Chapter 1: The Psyche Unleashed. This chapter is the heart of emotional stability. Lieberman explains that inside every person are 3 powerful forces: the body, the ego, and the soul. The body craves comfort, the ego craves admiration, and the soul craves truth and virtue. The core message: self-esteem is not about confidence or being successful, it's about doing what's right even when it's hard. If a person seeks validation from others constantly, reacts emotionally to minor setbacks, or can't take responsibility, they're likely running on a low self-esteem engine. The author explains how emotional instability often comes from a bottomless cup. No matter how much love or attention a person gets, it's never enough because they can't hold on to it. That's why even highly confident people may be deeply insecure. Anger, manipulation, and blame are often symptoms of this inner void. Lieberman also shares that true emotional health is rooted in self-control, responsibility, and perspective, not mood, money, or charm. Question for the viewers: have you ever felt like you needed constant praise or reassurance to feel okay, or known someone who spiraled without it? So before we go on, if you're someone who's ready to build your dream business, not in months, but in days, I've got something just for you. It's called the Entrepreneur's Launch Kit, 11 profitable businesses you can start today. And it's packed with the most in-demand, high-income digital skills and step-by-step video tutorials to help you launch fast. Here's a glimpse at what's inside. Launch your digital product biz in 7 days faceless YouTube. Earn $1,000 per month in 30 days. Start your AI marketing agency with $0. Land 5 high-ticket clients in 14 days. Build your personal brand in 7 days, and 6 more powerful systems. People are already using these exact blueprints to generate $3,000, $10,000, even $50,000 per month businesses. So if you're ready to take charge of your time, income, and purpose, start today. Check out the Entrepreneur's Launch Kit in the description, comments, and our bio. https zuzu2025.gumroad.com/L Entrepreneur's Launch Kit. Now, back to the book. Chapter 2: Diagnosis. Bias, the system, as we know it. Dr. Lieberman kicks off this chapter with a big warning. Even experts misread people, and not because they're careless, but because of something called diagnosis bias. It's the mental shortcut our brain takes when we think we know what someone's like based on limited cues. Ever met someone and immediately thought, he's confident, or she's definitely crazy? That's diagnosis bias at play. Lieberman explains that our brains love to save time. So instead of carefully evaluating a person from scratch, we shove them into mental boxes built from past experiences, assumptions, stereotypes, and emotions. He gives examples from medicine and psychology. Doctors often misdiagnose patients because they rely on what they usually see. If a doctor treats depression often, a tired patient might get labeled depressed, even if they actually have thyroid issues. It's not that the doctor is careless, they're just trapped in their own mental shortcuts. The chapter ends with a reminder: you are not your diagnosis. Emotional instability can't always be spotted in one moment, and misjudging others or ourselves can do real harm. Question for the viewers: have you ever been misjudged based on one small behavior, or done the same to someone else? Lieberman also introduces two psychological traps. Availability heuristic: we overestimate things we've seen recently, like assuming all couples cheat if we just saw a TV show about infidelity. Representativeness heuristic: we assume that if someone fits a certain stereotype, they must be like others in that category. Here's the twist: this bias doesn't just apply to others, it applies to ourselves too. If someone labels us shy, overthinker, or toxic, we may start living up to that label. This is called the law of expectancy. You act how people expect you to act, even if it's inaccurate. That's the danger of hasty labeling. People start to believe they are their diagnosis, even if they're just having a bad day. Lieberman warns that labels have power, and we must be careful not to reduce people to their worst moments, moods, or traits. The chapter ends with a reminder: you are not your diagnosis. Emotional instability can't always be spotted in one moment, and misjudging others or ourselves can do real harm. Question for the viewers: have you ever been misjudged based on one small behavior, or done the same to someone else? Chapter 3. The System at Work, Laying the Groundwork. So how exactly do you find out if someone is emotionally stable or not in just a few minutes? In this chapter, Dr. Lieberman introduces the foundation of his entire emotional profiling system, the idea of emotional footprints. These are small, often unconscious behaviors people exhibit that reveal their true emotional health. The key takeaway? People can hide thoughts, but they can't hide patterns. The beauty of this system is that you don't need anyone's permission to assess them. You don't even need them to talk much. A person's body language, attitude, reactions, and tone, these all leave behind an emotional trail you can read like a map. Dr. Lieberman breaks emotional health down into 4 major hidden components, called the 4 facets: self-esteem, how much a person genuinely values themselves; responsibility, their willingness to own their actions and grow. This isn't about being judgmental, it's about being aware. Lieberman wants us to observe people in different scenarios, at work, at home, under stress, and look for recurring patterns. Are they consistent, respectful, and honest? Or are they reactive, defensive, and manipulative? The more footprints you collect, the clearer the emotional picture becomes. Question for the viewers: have you ever noticed a small behavior in someone that later revealed a much bigger truth about who they really were? Perspective, their ability to see situations clearly without emotional distortion. Relationships and boundaries, how well they navigate personal and social space. Each of these creates visible behaviors or footprints that anyone can observe. For instance, if someone is always late, avoids follow-through, or explodes at minor things, it's probably not a coincidence. It's a reflection of one of those 4 broken areas. Here's a key insight from the chapter: the 4 facets are connected like dominoes. If someone lacks responsibility, they often suffer from low self-esteem. Low self-esteem narrows their perspective, and that, in turn, leads to poor boundaries and toxic relationships. In other words, emotional instability cascades through every part of their life. This isn't about being judgmental, it's about being aware. Lieberman wants us to observe people in different scenarios, at work, at home, under stress, and look for recurring patterns. Are they consistent, respectful, and honest? Or are they reactive, defensive, and manipulative? The more footprints you collect, the clearer the emotional picture becomes. Question for the viewers. Have you ever noticed a small behavior in someone that later revealed a much bigger truth about who they really were? Chapter 4, Facet 1, The Self-Esteem Machine. In this eye-opening chapter, Dr. Lieberman dives deep into the first and most critical foundation of emotional health, self-esteem. But here's the twist. He explains that self-esteem isn't about confidence, success, or popularity. It's about how much you truly like and respect yourself when no one's watching. He introduces three main forces inside each of us: the body, which wants comfort; the ego, which wants admiration; the soul, which wants to do what's right. The more we give in to ego or body drives, like lying to look good, overeating, showing off, the more we chip away at self-esteem. But when we make soul-driven choices, doing what's right even when it's hard, we build a solid emotional core. Think of it as a seesaw. When ego goes up, self-esteem goes down. A person can be rich, outgoing, and admired, and still feel worthless inside. He even warns us to watch how people treat waiters, drivers, or janitors. How someone acts when they don't have to be nice, that's where the truth shows up. Question for the viewers. Have you ever met someone who looked super confident, but something told you they were covering up insecurity? Dr. Lieberman explains that low self-esteem doesn't just affect how we feel, it actually warps how we see the world. We become overly sensitive, needy, reactive, or avoidant. To survive emotionally, people develop one of three toxic coping personalities: the compliant, the people pleaser, always apologizing, saying yes out of fear, and neglecting their own needs; the arrogant, loud, showy, controlling, desperate for praise but secretly empty and fragile inside; the avoidant, withdrawn, cold, overly independent. They avoid relationships and pressure because they fear rejection or failure. These personalities are not fixed. A person may swing between them based on the situation. What links them all is that they are symptoms of low self-esteem. Dr. Lieberman also busts some major myths. He warns us not to confuse ego for self-worth, confidence for real self-esteem, success for emotional health, cheerfulness for inner peace. A person can be rich, outgoing, and admired, and still feel worthless inside. He even warns us to watch how people treat waiters, drivers, or janitors, how someone acts when they don't have to be nice. That's where the truth shows up. Question for the viewers. Have you ever met someone who looked super confident, but something told you they were covering up insecurity? Chapter 5, Facet 2, The Responsibility Factor. Welcome to the second pillar of emotional stability, responsibility. In this chapter, Dr. Lieberman reveals a hard truth. Your emotional life is directly tied to how much responsibility you're willing to take. And here's the kicker. People who struggle emotionally often blame everything and everyone but themselves. He opens with a quote that sums it all up. People do not act irresponsibly because they are ill because they act irresponsibly. What that means is simple. Bad choices aren't just side effects of emotional instability, they're often the cause. Emotionally unstable people avoid discomfort at all costs. They won't take risks unless there's a guaranteed reward. They quit when things get hard. They avoid challenges and drown themselves in distractions: food, games, online scrolling, gossip, or drama. He also points out that personal growth requires loss. You have to give up comfort, control, or an old identity to level up. But emotionally unhealthy people resist this. They'd rather fail on their terms than succeed on new ones. The chapter ends with a call to action. Responsibility is freedom. You don't need to fix everything overnight, but every time you say, "This is on me," you grow stronger, more stable, and more fulfilled. Question for the viewers. Is there something in your life right now that you've been blaming on someone else? That maybe you need to own? Dr. Lieberman introduces a fascinating concept: self-created chaos. Ever met someone who always loses their keys, misplaces their phone, or forgets important appointments? It's not just clumsiness, it's a subconscious way of injecting drama to feel in control of something. The satisfaction they feel when they fix the mess is like a tiny dopamine hit, a false win. Here's the emotional pattern he describes. Avoid accountability. Wait for others to rescue you. Distract yourself with entertainment or excuses. Blame others. Repeat. But this comes at a cost. Lieberman explains that people who live this way get caught in a loop of emotional immaturity. They chase the illusion of control, while their real life stays stagnant. And with every avoided responsibility, their self-esteem crumbles just a little more. He also points out that personal growth requires loss. You have to give up comfort, control, or an old identity to level up. But emotionally unhealthy people resist this. They'd rather fail on their terms than succeed on new ones. The chapter ends with a call to action. Responsibility is freedom. You don't need to fix everything overnight, but every time you say, "This is on me," you grow stronger, more stable, and more fulfilled. Question for the viewers. Is there something in your life right now that you've been blaming on someone else that maybe you need to own? Chapter 6, Facet 3, Degree of Perspective. In this chapter, Dr. Lieberman shifts our focus to the third emotional foundation, perspective, your ability to view life through a clear, rational lens instead of a fogged-up emotional one. He starts by saying that the way we interpret situations, our perspective, determines how we react. Emotionally unstable people often react not to reality, but to their distorted view of it. And when someone can't step back to see the bigger picture, they live in a constant state of emotional chaos. Let's say you're stuck in traffic. One person sees it as a chance to listen to music, another flips out, honking and yelling. The difference isn't the situation, it's the perspective. Perspective is also about timing. Emotionally immature people expect instant results and instant gratification. They lack the long view. This short-term thinking leads to impulsive choices and regret. But here's the good news. Perspective can be trained. You can build it by practicing patience, asking, "What else could this mean?" Zooming out in stressful situations, learning to delay reactions. The more perspective you have, the more resilient and emotionally grounded you become. You don't live in reaction, you respond with intention. Question for the viewers. Can you think of a time when your emotions made something feel way bigger than it actually was? Dr. Lieberman explains that emotional health depends on our ability to correctly categorize events. Healthy people know how to mentally separate what matters from what doesn't. They don't waste energy on petty comments, spilled coffee, or minor social slights. But unhealthy people, everything matters. Every look, word, or tone becomes a personal attack. He uses a simple model. Emotionally stable people lead with logic, using emotions to guide decisions. Emotionally unstable people lead with emotion, using logic only to justify their reactions. When your self-esteem is low and your sense of control is weak, you interpret the world as hostile, unfair, and threatening. Lieberman explains that people with poor perspective often assume others are out to get them, take everything personally, overreact to small problems, can't separate current events from past emotional wounds. Perspective is also about timing. Emotionally immature people expect instant results and instant gratification. They lack the long view. This short-term thinking leads to impulsive choices and regret. But here's the good news. Perspective can be trained. You can build it by practicing patience, asking, "What else could this mean?" Zooming out in stressful situations, learning to delay reactions. The more perspective you have, the more resilient and emotionally grounded you become. You don't live in reaction, you respond with intention. Question for the viewers. Can you think of a time when your emotions made something feel way bigger than it actually was? Chapter 7, Facet 4, Relationships and Boundaries. Now we dive into the fourth and final facet of emotional stability, Relationships and Boundaries. Dr. Lieberman opens this chapter with a truth bomb. Your emotional health is most visible in the way you handle relationships. Why? Because relationships are where our insecurities, patterns, and needs all show up, raw and unfiltered. He explains that healthy relationships require healthy boundaries, and vice versa. Emotionally stable people know where they end and others begin. They're not clingy, they're not cold, and they don't smother or ghost. Instead, they create space for connection while protecting their personal peace. Unstable people, however, struggle in two key areas. They blur boundaries, they overshare too quickly, invade personal space, or try to control others. They feel rejected if you don't respond fast enough or agree with them. But healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, personal responsibility, and emotional independence. You're two whole people sharing your lives, not trying to fix each other. Finally, Lieberman reminds us, if someone constantly attracts chaos in their relationships, the common denominator might be them. Question for the viewers: have you ever had to set a boundary with someone and noticed how they reacted, told you everything? They resist vulnerability. On the flip side, some people wall themselves off. They fear intimacy, avoid closeness, and retreat the moment emotions get real. Both behaviors come from the same root: low self-esteem and emotional immaturity. Lieberman emphasizes that emotionally unhealthy people seek validation through relationships. They aren't truly connecting, they're using others as emotional fuel. This leads to toxic patterns like emotional manipulation, if you loved me, you'd, passive aggressiveness, jealousy and control, people-pleasing, or codependency. Here's a powerful test from the book. Watch how someone handles boundaries. Do they honor your no? Do they give you space when needed? Do they have their own life? Or are they trying to merge into yours? People with poor emotional health often don't realize they're crossing lines. They just feel desperate for connection or control. But healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, personal responsibility, and emotional independence. You're two whole people sharing your lives, not trying to fix each other. Finally, Lieberman reminds us, if someone constantly attracts chaos in their relationships, the common denominator might be them. Question for the viewers: have you ever had to set a boundary with someone and noticed how they reacted, told you everything? Chapter 8. The Mental CAT Scan. The 5-Minute Exchange. This chapter is where things get seriously practical. Dr. Lieberman introduces a rapid-fire technique called the Mental CAT Scan, a psychological tool that helps you assess someone's emotional health in as little as 5 minutes. Imagine this: you're in an elevator, a coffee shop, or on a quick phone call. You don't have time for deep conversation, but you can still gather powerful clues about someone's inner world. That's the power of the CAT scan. Here's how it works. You use a brief, casual exchange to observe a person's reactions, language, and emotional energy. According to Lieberman, emotional instability leaks out in predictable ways, if you know where to look. So, what should you pay attention to in those 5 minutes? Speech patterns. Do they talk in extremes, always, never, everyone? This can signal black and white thinking and emotional immaturity. Think of this like reading an emotional X-ray. You don't need full conversations or deep confessions. People reveal themselves more in how they speak than what they say. Question for the viewers. Think about someone new you recently met. What small behaviors gave you a gut feeling, good or bad, about who they really are? Reactions to stress. Even a minor hiccup like a late coffee or a slow line can reveal frustration, entitlement, or grace. Watch how they handle the moment. Body language. Do they fidget, clench their jaw, cross their arms tightly? Do they invade your space? These are physical footprints of their internal state. Tone and eye contact. A flat or overly intense tone can suggest disconnection or defensiveness. Inconsistent eye contact might point to avoidance, discomfort, or aggression. But the most telling cue, how they respond to boundaries. Give them a small no or light disagreement. Do they respect it, joke about it, or get visibly annoyed? Their emotional wiring shows up fast in these moments. Lieberman stresses this isn't about being judgmental, it's about being safe. We often get too close to unstable people because we ignore these red flags or mislabel them as quirks. Think of this like reading an emotional X-ray. You don't need full conversations or deep confessions. People reveal themselves more in how they speak than what they say. Question for the viewers. Think about someone new you recently met. What small behaviors gave you a gut feeling, good or bad, about who they really are? Chapter 9. How to be a conversational archaeologist. Now that we've learned how to scan someone emotionally in 5 minutes, this chapter takes it even deeper. Dr. Lieberman introduces the idea of becoming a conversational archaeologist, someone who gently digs beneath the surface of everyday conversation to uncover a person's true emotional architecture. Unlike formal interviews or heavy, deep talks, this method is light, casual, and subtle. The goal isn't to interrogate, it's to observe how people reveal themselves when they're relaxed and unguarded. So, how do you do it? Step 1. Ask open-ended questions instead of, "Do you like your job?" Try, "What's your job like day to day?" The way someone answers is far more revealing than the answer itself. Do they complain, blame others, sound grateful, avoid giving details? Emotionally healthy people tend to reflect with balance. Unhealthy people often show bitterness, victim mentality, arrogance, or a lack of connection to their own feelings. By using these techniques, you can gently unearth a person's values, coping mechanisms, triggers, and patterns, without them even realizing you're doing it. Lieberman reminds us, the point isn't to judge, it's to protect your energy, time, and heart. People tell you who they are if you know how to listen. Question for the viewers: have you ever learned everything you needed to know about someone just by listening to how they talk about others? Step 2. Listen for patterns. One bad day doesn't mean someone's unstable, but if every story they tell ends with someone betraying them, being unfair, or not recognizing their worth, that's a red flag. You're not just listening for facts, you're listening for themes. Are they always the hero or always the victim? Do they own their choices or shift blame? Is their tone energized and open or defensive and negative? Step 3. Watch their story structure. Healthy people can explain things in a straightforward, coherent way. Unstable people often ramble over-explain, jump around, or speak in vague, disconnected ways. This is important. A disorganized mind reveals itself in a disorganized conversation. Step 4. Gauge how they receive feedback. Drop a gentle disagreement, suggestion, or counterpoint. Do they get curious, deflect, argue, shut down? That moment of friction often reveals their ego's grip. By using these techniques, you can gently unearth a person's values, coping mechanisms, triggers, and patterns, without them even realizing you're doing it. Lieberman reminds us, the point isn't to judge, it's to protect your energy, time, and heart. People tell you who they are if you know how to listen. Question for the viewers: have you ever learned everything you needed to know about someone just by listening to how they talk about others? Chapter 10. The Alarm Bells. This chapter is all about red flags, the emotional alarm bells you shouldn't ignore. Dr. Lieberman calls them emotional leaks, subtle behaviors that people with poor emotional health can't help but reveal. These red flags might seem small at first: an awkward laugh, a passive-aggressive comment, a weird reaction to a joke, but they are often signs of something deeper. He emphasizes that emotionally unstable people often appear normal at first. They can be charming, funny, even magnetic. But eventually, the mask slips. And when it does, you must pay attention. Here are some of the key alarm bells Lieberman lists. 1. overreacting to minor frustrations. Someone flips out over a delayed coffee or a long line. That's not just a bad mood, that's poor emotional regulation. 2. Inappropriate or forced laughter. If someone laughs too loudly, too often, or at strange moments, they may be masking discomfort or insecurity. 3. Chronic interrupting. People who constantly cut others off in conversation are often battling control issues or low self-worth. It's a subtle way of dominating attention. 4. Extreme opinions or absolute language. Phrases like always, never, everyone, or no one indicate black and white thinking. Healthy minds understand nuance. 5. Name-dropping, bragging, or grandiosity. These behaviors are often ego-driven attempts to feel enough. People with real self-esteem don't need to advertise it. 6. Avoiding eye contact or holding it too long. Both extremes are a sign of discomfort. Either they're hiding something or trying too hard to appear confident. Lieberman also explains the intensity factor, the idea that unstable people often carry a heavy emotional charge. You might feel drained after talking to them. It's like emotional static in the air. Too much energy, too fast, too loud. The chapter ends with this key message. Emotionally healthy people don't trigger confusion, guilt, anxiety, or exhaustion. If someone leaves you feeling unsettled, there's a reason. Trust the vibe. The vibe is data. Question for the viewers. Can you think of a time when your gut told you something was off about a person, even before they did anything major? Chapter 11. Spotting the Stable. After focusing so much on red flags and emotional instability, Dr. Lieberman shifts gears in this chapter and teaches us how to recognize something far more powerful: emotional stability. While unstable people often display patterns of chaos, emotionally stable people give off a very different energy. A calm, grounded, balanced presence that doesn't need to shout for attention. So how do you spot someone who's emotionally healthy? Lieberman gives us a detailed list of green flags, the signs of true psychological strength. Checkmark 1. Consistency. Emotionally stable people are predictable in a good way. They don't swing from hot to cold, cheerful to cruel. You can count on them to be the same person across time and situations. 2. Appropriate reactions. They respond to life, not overreact. If someone handles stress, feedback, or disagreement with grace, it's a strong sign their inner world is steady. 3. Comfort with silence. Interestingly, he points out that emotionally stable people often go unnoticed, not because they're dull, but because they're not creating chaos. But if you're looking to build a peaceful life, these are the exact people you want around. In relationships, friendships, and business, seek the ones who bring peace, not noise. Question for the viewers. Have you ever met someone who made you feel calmer just by being in the room? Unlike unstable people who often need to fill every second with words, healthy individuals are comfortable with pauses. They don't rush to impress or overshare. 4. Strong but flexible opinions. They have clear beliefs, but they're not offended if you disagree. Their ego doesn't get rattled by other people's views. 5. Empathy and curiosity. Stable people ask thoughtful questions, listen without interrupting, and truly care about your experience. They aren't just waiting for their turn to speak. 6. Accountability. They own their mistakes. No excuses, no drama. They apologize when they're wrong and take steps to make things right. Lieberman explains that true emotional strength is quiet. It doesn't demand attention. It radiates calm, safety, and maturity. These are the people you feel safe around. You don't have to walk on eggshells or second-guess yourself. Interestingly, he points out that emotionally stable people often go unnoticed, not because they're dull, but because they're not creating chaos. But if you're looking to build a peaceful life, these are the exact people you want around. in relationships, friendships, and business, seek the ones who bring peace, not noise. Question for the viewers. Have you ever met someone who made you feel calmer just by being in the room? Chapter 12. Psychological Self-Defense. In this chapter, Dr. Lieberman arms us with the tools we need to protect ourselves emotionally, especially when dealing with unstable or manipulative people. He explains that while recognizing instability in others is important, it's equally vital to know how to guard your own mind and emotions. Emotional vampires, narcissists, and toxic personalities don't just disturb your peace. They can reprogram your self-worth if you're not careful. So how do you defend yourself? 1. Don't engage their drama. Toxic people feed off your reaction. They bait you with insults, guilt trips, or passive aggression. The moment you take the bait, they win. Instead, respond calmly or not at all. Don't get pulled into emotional chess matches. 2. Don't try to fix or heal them. It might feel noble to be someone's savior, but Lieberman warns, unstable people will drain you and often resist change. Your job is to protect your energy, not be their unpaid therapist. 3. Set and enforce boundaries. Emotionally unstable individuals often test limits. Whether it's your time, money, space, or peace, they'll cross the line if you don't hold it firmly. Be direct, be calm, say no when needed. 4. Trust behavior, not apologies. Words are cheap. Lieberman says, never judge a person by their explanation. Judge them by their pattern. Someone who repeatedly hurts, apologizes, and repeats the cycle isn't changing. They're manipulating. 5. Detach with dignity. If someone is constantly bringing chaos or harming your well-being, walk away without guilt. You don't need a grand confrontation or explanation. Quiet exits protect your soul. He also stresses that your self-worth is your shield. The more grounded you are in your values, purpose, and self-respect, the less vulnerable you become to emotional predators. Lieberman ends with a truth many need to hear. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for wanting a drama-free life. Question for the viewers. Have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship longer than you should have, thinking you could change them? Chapter 13. The Secret to Emotional Health. In this final chapter, Dr. Lieberman reveals the core principle behind everything we've learned so far. The true secret to emotional health is alignment with truth, responsibility, and values. He strips away the fluff and explains that emotional stability doesn't come from self-help trends, mantras, or mood hacks. It comes from living in integrity. That means your actions, beliefs, and intentions are all working in harmony. No pretending, no faking, no shortcuts. Lieberman ties together all 4 emotional health pillars: self-esteem, built by doing what's right, not what's easy; responsibility, taking ownership of your thoughts, actions, and growth; perspective, seeing life through clarity, not distortion; relationships and boundaries, respecting yourself and others without merging or manipulating. He emphasizes that emotional instability begins when we abandon responsibility. We try to outsource our happiness to other people, situations, or achievements. But when life doesn't deliver what we expected, we blame, lash out, or collapse inward. The stable person, by contrast, accepts life on life's terms. They don't need to control everything to feel safe. They stay true to their values, even when it's inconvenient or painful. That consistency becomes their inner anchor. Lieberman also warns about today's culture of over-identification with emotional states. People say, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm broken. And while feelings are real, they are not your identity. He urges readers to stop labeling themselves by temporary emotions and instead take consistent steps toward emotional strength. The ultimate message? Emotional health is not about feeling good all the time. It's about doing what's good for you over time. No person is perfectly stable, but anyone can become healthier day by choosing truth over comfort, growth over victimhood, and responsibility over blame. This book doesn't just help you read other people, it helps you become the kind of person who brings peace, not chaos, to every room you enter. Final question for the viewers. After everything you've learned, what's one step you'll take today to build your own emotional strength? And that's a wrap on Find Out Who's Normal and Who's Not by Dr. David J. Lieberman. If you've ever felt confused, drained, or second-guessed your instincts about people, this book just handed you a powerful lens to see clearly. Because once you understand the emotional blueprint of others, you stop falling for charm and start protecting your peace. Here's the best part. You don't have to become a psychologist to spot instability or grow stronger yourself. Just start small. Pay attention, take responsibility, set boundaries, and most importantly, become the kind of stable person you'd want to meet. And hey, if this summary helped you, imagine what your life would look like if you took that insight and built something real with it. That's why I created the Entrepreneur's Launch Kit, a step-by-step toolkit with 11 profitable businesses you can start today. It's designed for people like you, curious, action-driven, and ready to take charge. From launching a faceless YouTube channel to starting an AI agency or building a digital product empire, this kit has everything you need to start your entrepreneurial journey in days, not months. The link is in the description, pinned comment, and bio. Entrepreneur's Launch Kit. 11 profitable businesses you can start today. Drop a comment below and tell me, what was your biggest aha moment from this book? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and as always, stay curious. This is Zuzu, the book reader, signing off. Book Animal Sparkles.